Hey, welcome to the 42 Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Joshua Kajila. This is a space built primarily for athletes where their stories are told and shared with the world. The name 42 means for the athlete to the world, and that's exactly our mission. Along the way, we'll also dive into everything happening in our wonderful world of sports. So whether you're an athlete, a fan, or just love a good story, you are in the right place. Hey, welcome back to the 42 Sports Podcast. My name is Joshua Kajila. I'm hoping you had a great weekend as we step into this new week. The final week in October, November starting on Saturday. It was a good weekend for me personally. Manchester United defeating Brighton 4-2 at Old Trafford. And that's their third win in a row, if I am not mistaken. But also happening elsewhere in the world of sports. The NBA is fully underway. And it looks like the San Antonio Spurs and Victor Wembanyama have gotten off to a great start, as well as the Chicago Bulls in the Eastern Conference and last year's champions OKC seem to also be continuing their great run of form in the last couple of years. They're just under the San Antonio Spurs. And of course, we have Liverpool, who unfortunately, or well, in my case as a United fan, but maybe you're a Liverpool fan listening to this and it might be unfortunate for you, but they have lost their fourth Premier League game in a row. They fell short to Brentford, losing 3-2. Brentford have surprised one or two people. They've surprised me. Keith Andrews coming into this Brentford side that doesn't have Mbemo, doesn't have Visa. Lost also Thomas Frank. So it's impressive to see what Brentford have been able to do. It's been a very interesting Premier League season. Arsenal seem to be the front runners at this point, and it looks like their league to lose. So we expect more of the same from them. A very strong side defensively. I think they've only conceded 3 goals in all competitions this season. And one of those goals was a set piece or free kick from Dominic Szoboszlai when they played Liverpool at Anfield. So this is a good defensive Arsenal side. They're very efficient. It's going to be interesting if they have enough firepower to get over the line, but from what they've shown us so far, definitely looking quite strong. Chelsea struggling against Sunderland, losing 2-1 at Stamford Bridge. It's a very interesting Premier League season. But I think for me, what makes it interesting, and we're going to chat about this on today's episode, is kind of the contrast between Manchester United and Liverpool. Liverpool started off the season, I think the first 5 games, they won all of them. And at that point, I actually remember saying to somebody on X, the league's already over, might as well hand Liverpool a title. Everyone else looks a step off it. And then now Liverpool get into this rough patch. It's more than a rough patch, losing 4 games in the Premier League in a row. It's almost crisis time for Arne Slot and Liverpool. Because if they continue struggling, then they're going to find themselves way too far behind Arsenal. At this stage, Liverpool's 7th. And what's funny, or what's even more funny, is they're below Manchester United. And if you recall several games ago, this would have been like before the Sunderland game or approaching the Sunderland game, a lot of Manchester United fans, a lot of the media, most of the footballing world thought that Rueben Amorim was on his way out. I mean, his form coming from last season where they struggled and they finished 15th in the Premier League, which is for a United side. It's unheard of. Coming into this season, it actually looked like they got worse. It looked like they struggled, or they were going to continue struggling. I remember that early defeat against Grimsby. And I mean, that just set the tone for the first few months of the Premier League season. But 9 games in, Manchester United are placed 6th. And I think they were as high as top 5, top 4, if I'm not mistaken. And this was due to that amazing performance against Brighton, a team that's been really difficult for United in the past. But it seems as if Rueben Amorim's side have really turned a corner. And I want to go back to the point I made about Arne Slot and Liverpool, how they started the season so well, and now they're finding themselves in a bit of trouble. So much so that people are asking if Arne Slot is out of his depth after winning the Premier League last season in his first season, and now questions are being asked about his job security, which is funny because remember Rueben Amorim's job security wasn't, clear going into that Sunderland game a few weeks ago. And then Jim Ratcliffe came out and publicly said, Amorim is here to stay and we're here to back him. We're here to support him by whatever means necessary. And I think because of that, shout out to Sir Jim Ratcliffe, who has been under a lot of pressure since handling the footballing affairs at Manchester United. A lot of his decisions have been ridiculed, but I think him coming out and saying to Amorim that, hey, we back you, that might have been the turning point in this United team season. But I want to use this example to almost introduce the topic of today's episode. As an athlete, so whether you're a football fan, whether you're a rugby player, whether you're a coach, you know very well that the more games you play, the more highs and the more lows you experience. So there's times where you are taking things casually and you're maybe not working as hard as you should be, but you're still performing on the pitch or on the court or in the pool, whatever your discipline is. And then there are other times where you're putting your soul into it. Practice, you're turning up every single day at the match, you're trying your best, but things aren't going your way. Maybe you've worked hard for 2 years and you get an injury. And then that ruins things for you, that derails you a bit. I remember that's what happened to me in grade 11 in high school. This was basketball season, beginning of the year. And that year, if I'm being optimistic now, and some of my friends might disagree, but I think, I had a good chance of playing first team sport for many different sports. Basketball, hockey, soccer, as well as athletics. But what happened was, during that first, I don't know if it was the first practice. I think it might have been the first practice of the season. I was playing basketball and I broke my wrist, which was terrible because up in the year before in grade 10, I actually made my first team debut unofficially. We were on a tour in the States and I was pushed up to play with the first team. The first team had a bunch of good players and I was put into that squad at a young age. At the time I was 15 still. And so going into the next year, grade 11, I was expected by my coaches and by other people that I would play first team. This injury came and it challenged my identity because up until that point, I had put my identity in my athletic performance. That was my main thing. And everyone has this, whether you're an athlete or whether your main thing is music or drama or whatever it is. Everyone tends to measure their identity by how well they're performing. And so when I was injured, I didn't have the opportunity to perform. And so a large part of my identity was unclear. And I was unsure of how I was going to add value to the school that I was representing, but also my own life and society as a whole. I know it's kind of dramatic looking back at it now, but as an athlete, somebody who puts their whole life into a specific thing and you not being able to do that and you not being able to do that well, that challenges you from a mental point of view. And going back to the example of Amorim and Slot, where Amorim, if you look at it, the first few months at United, or the first year almost, he was struggling. There was no consistency. There was no back-to-back wins for quite some time. His performance was not good. And so if he put his identity in his performance, he could have been destroyed. I mean, he doesn't like losing from what he has shared with the media, which is a good thing. You don't want to like losing. That's not the point of today's podcast. But it's this whole thing of understanding that you will have rough patches and you will have good patches. Rough patches where you're losing every single game. You can't really figure it out. And then the tide turns slightly and then momentum is on your side. And then you just have good games. And it's unexplainable and you're flowing. And that seems to be what's happening with United and Liverpool, where United started off poorly, but now they're flying. Liverpool started off well, but now they're struggling. And they can't seem to string together, never mind like wins, but performances. And performances for Liverpool in the past have been very dominant, especially how they started off the season. Hey, I hope you're enjoying the podcast so far. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. Before we dive back into the episode, I'd love it if you could take a quick moment to support this podcast. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, leaving a review or a rating goes a long way. And if you're watching on YouTube, a like, a comment, or even subscribing would mean the world to me. All right, that's enough from my side. Let's get back into the show. So if you're listening to this right now and you're a young athlete who is maybe going through the season, going through the motions, maybe you're putting a lot of effort into your specific sport and your craft, but you're not getting much out of it. That can be frustrating and it can be mentally very taxing. And it's something that maybe people outside of your discipline won't understand. But like I said earlier, everyone in society goes through this where they have their specific thing, their specific area of expertise, and they're putting a lot into that specific area. And if their performance or if what they're getting out is unsatisfactory, or unsatisfying, then they will struggle mentally. Emotionally, there will be a struggle. We see this even in like moving outside the athletic space, the athletic industry. You see this with corporate environments. They have key performance indicators. If you're not meeting that, then there's a high chance of you maybe being fired. But even moving away from being fired, like you as an employee feel terrible because your performance is showing that you're not good. And what we do naturally as people, what we do naturally as athletes, is we attach our identity to our performance. And the problem with that is, like I said, we'll have good days and we'll have bad days. We'll have good games and bad games. We'll have games where we score, games where we don't score. Athletic events where we do well, athletic events where we don't do well. Where we have a good time, where we have a bad time. That's what happens in this world of sport. It's the nature of it because we're competing every single day. Sometimes you show up, sometimes you don't show up. And it's important for your longevity that your identity isn't placed in something that is so inconsistent. It can vary from day to day. Even the greats, LeBron James, he'll have good seasons, he'll have bad seasons. You have your Rafael Nadal, Roger Federer, Novak Djokovic. They'll have their good opens, major opens. They'll have disappointing, lackluster major opens. So this applies across the board. Even if you're not an athlete and you're listening to this, your performance doesn't dictate your identity. We have been created by God, and that's where our value comes in. And that will protect you. If you think that way, if you think that like, okay, my identity isn't tied to my performance, that will protect you from the stress of negative performance and even a good performance. Because you're not you on your worst day and you're not you on your best day. You're somewhere in the middle where there's some consistency, there's some truth grounding you there. And that's the value you have as a created being. That's the value we all have. That grounds us because, like I said, we have good days, we have bad days. But it's important not to tie our identity to our performance because our performances change. One moment you're struggling, then the next moment you're on top of the world, like Manchester United and Rueben Amorim. And now all of a sudden, the media is quiet. Everyone seems to be a fan of Amorim's system. Everyone seems to be a fan of his charisma. But when things weren't going well, people were coming for him. They were saying he needs to get fired. He's not going to make it till Christmas. And he said something, I think it was after the Liverpool game. But he just speaks about like how you can't really live by the applause of men, because if you do, then you'll also die by their disapproval. And even as athletes, because when we win, it's so nice to win something. And I'm not speaking against winning and performing well, because you are competing by nature and you need to put in your best. But when you're winning, everyone's on your side. Everyone's so proud of you and everyone wants to be for you. But as soon as you lose, as soon as there's a dip in performance, then you lose a bit of popularity. With athletes, the natural way that we rate them is based off of performance. And I'm not saying that's inherently wrong. I'm just saying that we have to be careful as people in the athletic space to not put so much weight on those rankings, because those rankings change. Even if for your whole career, you're the best player, let's say like a Messi or a Ronaldo, there are several Ballon d'Ors between the both of them, but now they're not even being ranked in the top like 34 Ballon d'Ors. Not because they've stopped becoming Messi or Ronaldo, it's just that season has passed. And so even you as an athlete today, you might be having your best season, you might be having a bad season, your worst season, but that doesn't determine who you are. And for the sake of longevity, if you can think that way, if you can view yourself outside of how much output you can produce, then you will find that there'll be more peace when you are playing your sport. There'll be more peace when you lose. There'll be more peace when you win. You won't be as... How do I say this? So when you win and you're on that mountaintop experience, you won't let it get to your head. But when you lose, you won't let it get to your soul as well. And I think if we can apply that as athletes, then we can have healthier mental health when it comes to thinking about sports and thinking about our lives. Because sport, big part of our lives, and we're competing every single week, every single day. Sometimes we win, sometimes we lose. And that affects our mental well-being. It does, if we're being honest. And it's okay to compete. It's okay to want to win. But it's also okay to understand that if you lose, it's not the end of the world. And that doesn't define you. So I'm hoping that gave you some encouragement as you are heading into this new week and as you're heading into this new week of competition and training and just planning for the year end and next year as well. And I'm hoping that you were encouraged. And even if you're in a position now where you're struggling a little bit, maybe you're suffering from injuries, just know your identity isn't attached to what you can give or how well you can perform. And I think if you apply that to your life today, going forward, apply that to your specific athletic calling or gifting, then you're going to find yourself not just moving forward for longer, but moving forward in a healthier way, leading you to a long life of happy involvement with competition. That's all from my side for this episode of the 42 Sports Podcast. I hope the rest of the week goes well. This is the 42 Sports Podcast for the athlete to the world.